It's only fitting to upload a video about how mentally exhausting this election has been on the day of the election. And you might be like, huh? I wasn't expecting you, of all people, to talk about how draining this election is, considering, like, 90% of your content these days is politics. I do usually try to balance my content out with topics that either aren't political in nature or not 100% political at the very least. But these last few months, election season has been in full swing, especially after Biden dropped out and Kamala hopped in. And ever since, this has been a very unorthodox and especially polarizing election, and I just haven't been able to contain myself from talking about it a lot. But in the last month or so, I've been in this weird space where I don't like hearing about politics, but at the same time, I still enjoy talking about it. Verbalizing my thoughts has always been a very effective release for me, so that probably explains it. But anyway, the content I usually watch the most on this site are political commentary videos. The political commentary channels I watch the most are The Majority Report, probably my favorite channel on YouTube, definitely my favorite political commentary channel at least, Secular Talk, Vosh, and The Humanist Report, and I also watch gaming news and discussion videos, and some gaming video essays sometimes. And I've noticed that my intake of political content has really decreased, probably since early October. For the most part, my politics fill has been from news alerts from the news app on my iPhone. It's because I'm just really tired of hearing about this election, or more specifically, chatter about the polls. Look at the razor-thin margins in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Arizona, 3 out of a handful of swing states that decide the fucking fate of this country. Once again, the Electoral College fucking sucks, but that was literally what my last video was about, so I don't really need to go into that. But the constant reminder that seemingly half of the electorate in this country is perfectly fine with someone like Donald Trump, someone who lost an election fair and square 4 years ago and still denies the results of said election, someone who just had a rally where some hack comedian made a remark about Puerto Rican people being garbage. Oh, but it's not like Trump himself said that. Yeah, but do you really not think his campaign doesn't vet whatever a speaker says when they're on the podium during one of his fucking rallies? So you have either one of two scenarios. Either Trump's campaign team was perfectly fine with a quote-unquote joke, whose only punchline was calling an American territory that really should be a 51st state at this point, by the way, garbage, or his campaign team is completely fucking incompetent and doesn't check over what a speaker is going to say at a rally. Either way, it doesn't paint a good picture for Trump. That same comedian also made another joke about black people eating watermelons like it's the fucking 1890s again. And he had another speaker, Stephen Miller, say something to the effect of, America should only be a place for American people, aka white people. And that's what seemingly half of this country is willing to vote for. A party whose nominee is running a campaign that does not even attempt anymore to mask the bigotry. Or at the very least, that's what the polls suggest, and honestly, I really don't fucking like paying attention to polls. It's always the same shit. Here's polls out of Pennsylvania, a key battleground state, the state that will likely decide this fucking election, where Kamala's favorability is at 48%, whereas Trump's favorability is at 47%. Why should I dedicate my time to stressing over polls that may or may not reflect the reality of election day? I did my part already. I voted by mail a few weeks ago. Not like my single vote makes a shit difference though, because again, I live in a deep blue state and, you know, electoral college. That's not to say politics should only matter once every 4 years when you're filling out your ballot, but I'm just saying, why should I constantly stress over the same polls that come out over and over again, showing the same razor-thin margins in the same swing states? That only proved to be detrimental to my mental health, and I know for a fact it has been detrimental to other people's mental health as well. I know people in my personal life and online who are always looking at these polls and stressing out over the fact that we may be on the precipice of another 4 years of Trump. And I've said it over and over again, I have my problems with Kamala as a candidate and a politician. I've made my problems with her loud and clear, but at the same time, I would absolutely prefer a Kamala victory over a Trump victory. And I understand why people may be stressing over a potential Trump victory, especially since some of these people I know are part of the marginalized groups that the Trump campaign routinely attacks. I myself still stress over it a little bit, though I'm a cis-het white dude living in a deep blue state, so I know that I'll likely be okay. But I know trans people, for example, who don't live in solid blue states who would absolutely be directly negatively impacted by a second Trump term. And I hope this doesn't sound condescending, because obviously I can't can't know what it's like to be in your shoes for even a single second. But it doesn't hurt to unplug for a little bit. Again, I understand why you're concerned. Your concern is more than valid. But constantly stressing over an election day in and day out is not going to change the results of said election on the day of. And this goes to anyone stressing over this election, no matter what they identify as or where they live in this country. There's being in tune with current events in this country and keeping up with a very important election cycle, which is fine, obviously. And then there's being so wrapped up with this election to the point where your stress completely consumes you. Again, I usually watch political commentary videos regularly on this site, and I never felt burnt out from that content up until a month ago when the election was creeping up closer and closer. And that's when I realized constantly having my finger on the pulse of this election cycle isn't doing anything but harming my mental health. I still like reading articles and talking about some stories pertaining to this election in videos, but overall my intake of politics has decreased a little in this last month, and I feel like my mental health has improved a bit because of that. I've even been looking at Twitter less and less lately. I can now go days without looking at that far-right hellhole that no one at this point should even be posting on anymore. But anyway, I am ready for this election to be over and for everyone to finally stop stressing over it, and hopefully, we get the less sucky result. Which is Kamala. I'm sorry, if you still genuinely believe that Trump is the lesser evil at this point, I don't know, I hope you seek treatment for your severe brain injury one of these days. That's all I have to say. Bye-bye.